To understand why a California governor's tweets could break a former president, we need to see the bigger picture. This wasn't just social media sparring between politicians. This was the opening salvo in the battle for 2024's narrative, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Democracy versus authoritarianism, round 2. That's what we're watching unfold in real time, fought not with traditional campaign speeches or policy papers, but with memes, mockery, and calculated psychological warfare. The old rules of political combat, dignity, decorum, detailed platforms, died when Trump descended that golden escalator. Now we're in an era where a well-placed emoji can do more damage than a dozen attack ads. Gavin Newsom understood this new battlefield better than any Democrat since Obama. While others wrung their hands about going high when they go low, Newsom recognized a fundamental truth. You can't defeat a strong man by treating him strong. You defeat him by making him look silly. And nobody, absolutely nobody, was better positioned to be Trump's nightmare opponent than the tall, tan, Hollywood handsome governor who ran America's largest state while Trump ran his mouth. The positioning was surgical. Where Trump was chaos, Newsom was competence with a smile. Where Trump was grievance, Newsom was governance with a wink. Where Trump demanded to be feared, Newsom made him feel foolish. It was psychological warfare elevated to an art form, and it was working because Newsom had identified what Sun Tzu would have called the enemy's critical weakness. Trump's inability to ignore any slight wasn't just a personality quirk, it was a strategic vulnerability. Every president before him had learned to let small insults slide, to maintain dignity above the fray. But Trump? Trump would wrestle a pig in mud if the pig questioned his net worth. He'd engage with anonymous Twitter accounts if the CSS challenged his crowd sizes. He was psychologically incapable of not responding, and Newsom was about to exploit that weakness with the precision of a surgeon. The traditional political playbook said, ignore the troll, stay focused on policy, don't get dragged into the mud. But what if the troll was running for president again? What if the mud was where the battle for democracy would be fought? What if the only way to beat a bully was to make everyone laugh at him? Newsom discovered Trump's greatest weakness. His ego was both his armor and his Achilles heel. While Trump was building his house of cards on fear, a governor in California was studying exactly how to blow it down. To understand why Newsom's trolling was so devastatingly effective, you need to understand the psychology of Donald Trump, a man whose entire existence depended on being taken seriously by people he desperately needed to impress. Trump's psychological need for dominance and respect wasn't just vanity, it was existential. From his earliest days in Manhattan real estate, desperately seeking approval from the old money elite who saw him as Queen's trash with a gold toilet, Trump had built his entire identity on forcing others to acknowledge his superiority. Every building with his name in giant letters, every beauty pageant purchased, every reality show produced, all of it screaming, "Take me seriously," to a world that instinctively didn't. His history of meltdowns when challenged revealed the pattern. Rosie O'Donnell made a fat joke in 2006, and Trump spent the next decade attacking her in interviews. A disabled reporter questioned his memory, and Trump performed a cruel impression that haunted his campaign. Alec Baldwin's SNL impression got under his skin so badly that Trump, while President of the United States, regularly tweet-stormed about a comedy show. The most powerful man in the world, reduced to rage by an actor in a wig. This was the authoritarian playbook's fatal flaw. Strong men require fear to function. They need their enemies to tremble, their allies to grovel, their presence to intimidate. Fear is the oxygen that keeps authoritarian fire burning. But what happens when someone isn't afraid? What happens when they laugh instead? The whole mythology crumbles like a house of cards in a California breeze. Mockery undermines strongman mythology more effectively than any earnest resistance. You can't be a tough guy when people are giggling at your tantrums. You can't project strength when your opponent is treating you like a toddler having a meltdown in Target. Every dictator in history has understood this. It's why they banned comedians before journalists, why satire is more dangerous than straight news. Laughter is kryptonite to authoritarians. Trump's increasingly unhinged truth social presence revealed just how deep this vulnerability ran. His posts had devolved from presidential to pathetic, from commanding to desperate. Witch hunt at 2 a.m. Fake news at 4 a.m. Radical left lunatics at 5 a.m. The timestamps told the story of a man who couldn't sleep because someone, somewhere, might be laughing at him. The strongest man in Republican politics kept awake by the possibility of mockery, and that's why he couldn't ignore Newsom's provocations. Every ignored slight was an admission of weakness. Every unanswered insult was acceptance of inferiority. Trump's entire psychology was built on a foundation of dominance, and Newsom was taking a sledgehammer to it, one perfectly crafted tweet at a time. The California governor had found the formula. Make Trump choose between looking weak by not responding or looking unhinged by responding. Either way, the strongman looked small. While Trump was building his house of cards on fear, a governor in California was studying exactly how to blow it down. Gavin Newsom wasn't just winging it with random tweets. He was executing a calculated strategy that turned social media trolling into precision political warfare. The blueprint for beating bullies had been written during California's 2021 recall election, when Newsom faced down a Republican attempt to oust him. They'd thrown everything at him: French laundry dinners, COVID restrictions, the homeless crisis. The traditional political playbook said to apologize, deflect, and defend. Newsom chose a different path. He went on offense with a smile. He didn't just survive the recall. He demolished it by a wider margin than his original election. The lesson was clear. When fascists come for you, you don't cower. You make them look ridiculous. But beating Larry Elder was practice. Trump was the final boss, and Newsom approached him like a general studying an opponent's weaknesses. His team compiled what they called the trigger list, a comprehensive database of every topic, word, and reference that sent Trump into a spiral. Crowd sizes, Obama, intelligence, business failures, and at the top of the list, circled in red, personal appearance. The hair gel discovery was accidental genius. During a casual interview, Newsom had joked about using less hair product during COVID. Trump, watching from Mar-a-Lago, had exploded on Truth Social about hair gel Gavin for 3 consecutive days. Newsom's team realized they'd struck gold. Here was the former president of the United States, the supposed alpha male of Republican politics, completely undone by a grooming product reference. From that moment, Newsom weaponized it. Every appearance included a subtle hair joke. He'd smooth his admittedly perfect hair while discussing Trump's policies. He'd mention different gel brands while explaining California's budget surplus. He even did a TikTok ranking hair products while discussing infrastructure. It got 10 million views and a dozen unhinged Trump responses. The hair gel had become real estate in Trump's head, and Newsom was the landlord collecting rent in rage posts. Building a national profile through strategic confrontation required more than just jokes. It required timing, precision, and an understanding of modern media cycles. Newsom's team operated like a social media war room. They had staff monitoring Trump's Truth Social in real time, ready to respond within minutes. They studied engagement patterns, identifying that Trump was most vulnerable between 2 to 4 a.m. when his impulse control hit rock bottom. They crafted tweets specifically designed to be screenshot and shared, understanding that virality was the new Campa, in currency. The strategy sessions were part comedy writer's room, part military planning. What triggers him but makes us look good? Became the guiding question. They'd workshop tweets like Hollywood punch-up sessions, testing different emoji combinations, debating whether sleepy or confused would generate more response. They discovered that mixing policy wins with personal jabs created the perfect cocktail. Trump couldn't ignore the insult, but looked petty attacking the policy. One staffer described the approach. Traditional politicians think in news cycles. We think in memes. Every tweet is designed to be screenshotted, shared, and remixed. We're not just responding to Trump. We're giving millions of people the ammunition to mock authoritarianism. The sophistication was remarkable. They tracked which words made Trump use all caps, anything about intelligence or wealth, which topics made him post multiple times, crowd sizes, always crowd sizes, and which combinations guaranteed a middle-of-the-night meltdown. Obama plus success plus hair gel equals truth. Social explosion. They'd identified Trump's posting patterns so precisely they could predict his responses within a 30-minute window. But the genius wasn't just in the trolling, it was in the contrast. While Trump raged about hair gel at 3 a.m., Newsom would post about insulin prices at 9 a.m. While Trump screamed about failed California, Newsom would casually mention the state's record surplus. The juxtaposition was devastating. Unhinged former president versus competent governor who happened to have great hair. The team also understood platform dynamics. Twitter was for quick jabs, Instagram for visual mockery, TikTok for reaching young voters who found politics boring but loved watching Trump get owned. They created content native to each platform, understanding that a Facebook burn worked differently than a Twitter dunk. They weren't just trolling, they were building a multimedia empire of mockery. Most importantly, they never broke character. Newsom maintained his California cool, no matter how unhinged Trump's responses. The angrier Trump got, the more relaxed Newsom appeared. It was psychological jujitsu, using Trump's force against him, letting his rage make him look weak, while Newsom's calm made him look presidential. This wasn't just social media strategy, it was a masterclass in modern political warfare. Newsom had turned trolling from a juvenile tactic into a sophisticated weapon, wielded with the precision of a surgeon and the timing of a comedian. He'd found Trump's weakness and exploited it not with malice but with mirth, not with hatred but with humor. And he was just getting started. And then Newsom did something that political consultants said was impossible. He made Trump look small. The provocations that had started his tweets evolved into a full-scale psychological campaign that left Trump increasingly unhinged and Republicans begging for mercy. The red state visits were just Aeneas-level trolling disguised as governance. Newsom would show up in Texas to highlight California's renewable energy jobs, posting selfies at wind farms with captions like, "Creating more jobs than oil, with better hair days too." He'd visit Florida to meet with climate scientists, tweeting photos of himself wearing sunglasses indoors because the future's so bright in states that believe in science. Each visit was choreographed for maximum Trump trigger. Newsom would praise local Democratic mayors while subtly highlighting how California's policies worked better. He'd mention specific statistics that he knew Trump couldn't counter without lying. He'd time his visits for maximum media coverage, ensuring Trump would see it on whatever cable news played at Mar-a-Lago. But the billboard campaign in Florida was the chef's kiss of political trolling. Massive signs along I-95, California, where freedom actually lives. Another showing California's budget surplus versus Florida's insurance crisis. Sunshine State, more like sinking state. The masterpiece was a billboard near Mar-a-Lago showing Newsom's approval ratings next to Trump's, with the tagline, "Some leaders rise, others just rage." Trump's response was predictable and perfect. "Illegal billboards, Newscom wasting taxpayer money, should be investigated." The fact that the billboards were paid for by a PAC, not taxpayers, didn't matter. Trump was screaming about billboards at 4 a.m., looking exactly as small as Newsom intended. The DeSantis is just Trump with lifts comment broke the internet and possibly Ron DeSantis' soul. Delivered casually during a CNN interview, Newsom had managed to insult both Florida Republicans with one perfectly crafted burn. The observation that DeSantis wore height-boosting shoes while copying Trump's authoritarianism was devastating in its simplicity. Trump, who hated DeSantis for daring to challenge him, actually retweeted Newsom's insult before deleting it minutes later, a moment of confused rage that perfectly captured how thoroughly Newsom had scrambled his circuits. Trump's responses were becoming increasingly unhinged, even by Trump standards. The timestamps told the story: 2:47 a.m., 3:15 a.m., 3:32 a.m., 4:01 a.m. The grammar deteriorating with each post, the accusations growing wilder. Newsom was simultaneously a communist, a failed governor, a pretty boy, and somehow responsible for crime in cities he'd never governed. One memorable night, Trump posted 17 times about Newsom between midnight and dawn, a performance so unhinged that how Trump needs sleep started trending. Republican strategists were pulling their hair out, with or without gel. Every Trump response elevated Newsom's profile. Every middle-of-the-night rage fest made Trump look weaker. They tried interventions, sending emissaries to Mar-a-Lago to beg Trump to ignore the California governor. "He's baiting you," they pleaded. "Just focus on Biden." But Trump couldn't help himself. Newsom had found the perfect formula: make ignoring him feel like losing. The escalation reached its peak when Newsom started the Trump Translator series on TikTok. He'd take Trump's most unhinged Truth Social pose, tease and translate them. "Newsom destroying California means I'm mad. California has a budget surplus while I have court dates." The videos regularly got more views than Trump's original posts, a fact that drove Trump to new heights of fury. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. After a particularly brutal week of Newsom's trolling, including a viral video of him teaching a masterclass on how to style your hair when you're not under federal indictment, Trump finally snapped completely. "I challenge Gavin Newsom to a debate, anytime, any place. I'll destroy him like I destroyed Biden. He's scared." The challenge came at 3:33 a.m., because of course it did. Within minutes, it was screenshot and shared millions of times. Republican strategists reportedly threw their phones. Trump had just walked into exactly what Newsom wanted: a chance to troll him in person, on live television, in front of the entire world. Newsom's response came at a civilized 9 a.m. Pacific time. "I accept. I'll bring the hair gel, you bring the facts. Oh wait." The stage was set. The trap was sprung. And Donald Trump was about to learn why you should never challenge a happy warrior to a battle of wits when you're armed only with rage. "I'll bring the hair gel, you bring the facts," became the shot heard round the political world. But what followed wasn't just a debate. It was a masterclass in using humor to dismantle authoritarianism, one perfectly timed joke at a time. The debate negotiations were comedy gold. Trump's team demanded Fox News. Newsom countered with, "How about 4 seasons total landscaping? I hear you have history there." Trump wanted no fact-checkers. Newsom suggested, "We could use Truth Social's fact-checking team." "Oh wait, that's just you at 3 a.m. Every exchange was screenshot and shared, with Newsom turning procedural discussions into viral content. When they finally agreed on terms, CNN, with fact-checkers, in Miami, Newsom had already won the pre-game. He'd trolled Trump into accepting fact-checkers by suggesting they use whoever checks your tax returns. Trump, in his rage, agreed before realizing what he'd done. Republican strategists were reportedly drinking heavily. The debate itself was a massacre disguised as democracy. Newsom walked on stage with a small bottle of hair gel, placing it prominently on his podium. "Just in case," he said with a wink. Trump's face went from orange to red before the first question. But the genius was in how Newsom used humor to force Trump into impossible positions. When Trump ranted about American carnage, Newsom responded, "The only carnage I see is what you did to the English language on Truth Social last night." When Trump claimed he'd been the greatest president ever, Newsom pulled out his phone. "Let me check the presidential rankings. Oh, you're between William Henry Harrison, who died after 31 days, and Andrew Johnson, who was impeached. But hey, at least you beat the guy who died." Sauce. The trolling had a strategic purpose, making Trump defend the indefensible through mockery. When Trump tried to claim his presidency was successful, Newsom didn't list failures. He just laughed. "Successful? You were impeached twice. That's like saying the Titanic was a successful voyage because the band kept playing." The audience laughed. Trump sputtered. The strongman looked weak. The viral moments came fast and furious. When Trump claimed he'd won the 2020 election, Newsom pulled out a calculator. "Let me help you with the math. 81 million is bigger than 74 million. I know numbers are hard when you're used to inflating them for banks." When Trump attacked California's homeless problem, Newsom responded, "At least our homeless aren't former cabinet members writing tell-all books." Republicans were begging Trump to stop responding, but he couldn't. Every Newsom joke demanded a response, and every response made Trump look more unhinged. His campaign manager was reportedly texting, "Please stop talking," in all caps, becoming the very thing he swore to destroy. The Truth Social Meltdown Tracker went viral in real time. Someone had created a website tracking Trump's posts per minute during the debate. It peaked at 47 posts in 60 minutes when Newsom mentioned that, "Even your hair is having a bad night, and that's saying something coming from me." The tracker crashed from traffic. But the kill shot came when Trump, completely lost in rage, shouted that Newsom wouldn't last one day as president. Newsom paused, smiled, and delivered the line that would end Trump's night. "I'm not debating a former president. I'm babysitting a former reality star who can't accept he got canceled." The silence that followed was deafening. Trump's mouth opened and closed, but no words came. For perhaps the first time in his life, Donald Trump was speechless. The strongman who'd built his brand on dominance had been reduced to silence by a governor with good hair and better timing. His complete loss of composure was painful to watch. Trump tried to respond, but only managed in coherent fragments about hair gel and communism and toilets. He actually said toilets 3 times, apropos of nothing. His closing statement was just 2 minutes of him listing nicknames for Newsom while sweating through his makeup. The political world watched in awe as they realized Newsom had cracked the code. You don't defeat authoritarians with fear or fury, you defeat them with laughter. You don't match their energy, you redirect it. You don't legitimize their strongman act, you reveal it as the weak man's cosplay it always was. Post-debate, even Fox News couldn't spin it. Trump struggles in debate was their gentle headline. The real story was in the clips. Trump rage posting during commercial breaks, Trump forgetting what question he was answering, Trump calling Newsom Governor Hair Gel 17 times like it was clever the first time. But the most devastating moment came in the spin room. Asked about his strategy, Newsom simply said, "I prepared by watching his old tweets. He prepared by watching himself on TV. That's the difference between governing and grifting." Then he pulled out the hair gel, smoothed his perfect hair, and walked away. The political establishment, both parties, realized they'd witnessed something historic. Not just a debate victory, but a new playbook for defeating authoritarianism. Newsom had shown that you could be serious about democracy while not taking demagogues seriously, that you could fight fascism with joy instead of fear, that sometimes the best way to save democracy was to make its enemies look ridiculous. Trump never recovered. His Truth Social meltdown continued for days, each post more unhinged than the last. But nobody was paying attention anymore. The strong man had been revealed as a weak man with a phone and too much time. The emperor had no clothes, and everyone was laughing. But this was about more than viral moments. This was America discovering that fighting fascism could actually be fun. The cultural shift was seismic, transforming political resistance from a grim necessity into something approaching a national pastime. Newsom trolls. Trump didn't just trend for weeks. It became a generational rallying cry. Young voters who checked out after 2020's exhaustion suddenly found politics entertaining again. They weren't tuning in for policy debates about marginal tax rates. They were watching to see a masterclass in digital demolition. College students threw Trump meltdown watch parties, gathering to live stream his Truth Social breakdowns while playing drinking games. Take a shot every time he mentions hair gel. 2 shots for all caps. 3 if he posts between 3 to 4 a.m. Disclaimer, no one actually survived these games. Democrats nationwide experienced a collective awakening. You could fight back with joy instead of dread. For years, they'd treated Trump like political Voldemort, a dark force requiring constant vigilance and serious resistance. Newsom showed them he was more like a political Pokemon. Gotta mock 'em all. Congressional Democrats started incorporating humor into their floor speeches. Senate hearings became comedy showcases. Even Nancy Pelosi started subtweeting with emoji. The transformation of political engagement was profound. Young organizers who'd burned out on earnest activism found new energy in meme warfare. Voter registration drives used Newsom's burns as recruitment tools. Register to vote and get exclusive access to Trump's 3 a.m. meltdowns became an actual successful campaign. Democracy wasn't dying. It was laughing its way back to health. Trump's carefully constructed strongman image crumbled like a sandcastle at high tide. Decades of bluster, intimidation, and manufactured mystique dissolved under the acid rain of ridicule. You can't be an alpha male when a governor keeps making you look like a beta test. International observers noted the phenomenon. The American authoritarian who'd terrorized global politics for years had been reduced to a punchline by a politician with perfect hair and comic timing. Speaking of international leaders, they were taking furious notes. Emmanuel Macron started subtweeting authoritarians. Jacinda Ardern gave a masterclass on killing fascists with kindness and killer one-liners. Even Volodymyr Zelensky, facing actual war, found time to note that humor is the ultimate weapon against those who take themselves too seriously. The Newsom method was going global. The meme wars weren't just battles. They were bloodbaths, and Newsom kept winning by margins that would make Reagan jealous. Every Trump response generated 10,000 memes mocking it. His Truth Social posts became templates for comedy. The "Sir, this is a Wendy's" meme evolved into "Sir, this is a hair gel commercial" whenever Trump went off topic. His own supporters couldn't help but laugh, even as they hated themselves for it. Behind closed doors, Republicans were admitting what they couldn't say publicly. It was devastatingly effective. "He's making Trump look small," one senator confided. "And once people see you as small, you can never be big again." They tried coaching Trump, begging him to ignore Newsom. But it was like telling a moth to ignore a flame if the flame was also insulting the moth's appearance. The cultural impact extends beyond politics. Late-night comedy got funnier. Social media became more joyful. The doom-scrolling that had defined the Trump era transformed into hope-scrolling. Americans remembered that laughter wasn't just the best medicine, it was also the best resistance. But beneath the memes and mockery lay a profound truth about democracy's survival. Authoritarians are allergic to laughter, and Newsom had just shown the world how to weaponize that allergy. Throughout history, authoritarians have required two things to function: fear and respect. Fear keeps the opposition silent. Respect keeps the supporters loyal. Remove either, and the whole structure collapses. Newsom hadn't just removed both. He'd replaced them with their opposites. Fear became amusement. Respect became ridicule. The formula that had sustained strongmen for centuries was suddenly obsolete. History is littered with examples of mockery as resistance. Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator did more to diminish Hitler's mystique than 1,000 earnest editorials. Soviet jokes whispered in kitchens eroded the Communist Party's authority from within. The Serbian youth movement Otpor brought down Milosevic not with violence, but with humor, making him look ridiculous until even his supporters couldn't take him seriously. Newsom's trolling exposed the emperor's lack of clothes with surgical precision. Every meltdown revealed Trump's thin skin. Every 3 a.m. rage post showed his lack of control. Every desperate attempt to seem strong highlighted his fundamental weakness. The strongman act only works if people buy it. Once they're laughing, the sale is lost forever. But the genius went deeper than just mockery. Newsom was building coalitions through shared laughter. Democrats and independents obviously enjoyed watching Trump get owned, but even moderate Republicans found themselves chuckling at the hair gel jokes. Laughter is non-partisan. It hits the funny bone regardless of political affiliation. By making Trump the butt of jokes rather than the target of fear, Newsom created space for his supporters to distance themselves without feeling attacked. The serious strategy behind the jokes was sophisticated political jujitsu. Every minute Trump spent rage tweeting about hair gel was a minute not spent spreading election lies. Every news cycle dominated by his meltdowns was a cycle not focused on his authoritarian plans. Newsom had turned Trump's greatest weapon, his ability to dominate media attention, into his greatest weakness. The attention was still there, but now it was the wrong kind. Most importantly, this approach created space for hope over despair. For years, opposing Trump had felt like staring into an abyss of democratic decay. Every norm broken, every institution attacked, every lie unchallenged. It was exhausting. Anxiety and depression had become the baseline emotional state for anyone paying attention. But Newsom showed that assistance could be joyful, that fighting for democracy didn't require sacrificing your sense of humor, that you could be a happy warrior instead of a grim soldier. The psychological impact was transformative. Therapists reported patients bringing up Newsom's trolling as a source of relief. For the first time in years, "I'm laughing at the news instead of crying," became a common refrain. Support groups that had formed around political anxiety transformed into comedy clubs, sharing the latest memes. The resistance had found its smile. Young activists especially embraced this new model. They organized troll-a-thons for voter registration. They created authoritarian roast battles on college campuses. They proved that you could be serious about democracy while not taking demagogues seriously. The false choice between engagement and entertainment had been exposed as the lie it always was. The results spoke for themselves. Trump's approval ratings among young voters cratered to historic lows. Not because of policy disagreements, those had always existed, but because he'd become cringe. And in modern politics, cringe is death. Newsom had done more damage with hair gel jokes than Democrats had done with 4 years of investigations. The international implications were equally profound. Authoritarians worldwide watched in horror as the American model of mockery-based resistance spread. Trolling dictators became a global sport. Memes crossed borders faster than missiles. The playbook for defeating strongmen had been rewritten in emoji and GIFs. But perhaps the most important result was the simplest. People felt empowered again. For years, Trump had seemed unstoppable, inevitable, larger than life. Newsom had revealed him as stoppable, evitable, and exactly life-sized, which is to say small. The spell was broken. The wizard was just a man behind a curtain, and the curtain was being pulled back by a governor with great hair and better timing. Democracy wasn't saved through grand gestures or noble sacrifices. It was saved through perfectly timed jokes and strategic silliness. It turned out the Founding Fathers had been wrong about one thing. The tree of liberty didn't need to be refreshed with blood. Sometimes, it just needed to be watered with liberal tears of laughter. So here we are, watching Trump's ongoing meltdowns from Mar-a-Lago, and the question has been definitively answered. Yes, trolling delivers real results. Not just viral moments or temporary embarrassment, but fundamental shifts in power dynamics. One governor with good hair and better timing showed Democrats how to fight fascism with joy instead of fear. Newsom proved that authoritarians aren't defeated by matching their darkness, but by shining light on their absurdity. This is your challenge. Us, joy as resistance. When confronted with authoritarian BS, don't despair, laugh, share the memes, make the jokes. Remember that every dictator in history has fallen not to armies, but to mockery. The power of laughter against fascism isn't just a theory. We watched it work in real time. We saw the strong man become the weak man. We witnessed fear transform into fun. Want to see more authoritarians get trolled into oblivion? Subscribe now. Because democracy needs defenders, but it also needs comedians, and sometimes they're the same thing.